Hi everybody, welcome back to HighByte. I'm Tom, this is Zero to Pipeline, and we've gotten pretty far in our course so far. Now, we've made our pipelines, we've created some data with it, we've done some curation of that data, we've done some reformatting of it to get it into a nice consistent system, and we've written it back out and sort of posted our cleaned up version of it. So really you could argue that's kind of the gist of it. However, I do want to take the time right now and talk about some of the deeper concepts of Intelligence Hub, some more things that we can do that are going to give us a little more leverage over our data, a little more opportunity to apply some more advanced concepts to it. So today I want to talk about the functions menu, which if you're a JavaScript enthusiast, you're going to really like. If you're not much of a coder or have no interest in being a coder, maybe you want to skip this one, but I would like to show you how we can reuse some code and really take our data operations to the next level. So hope you stick around, and I hope we learn something today.
Okay, so here we are. We're back in Intelligence Hub. Screen we've grown very familiar with. I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm immediately greeted by my pipelines, my connections, everything that we've done so far. And while I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the functions here. We spent a little bit of time here if we checked out the JSON interlude where we talked about kind of what a JSON is, what an object is, and we goofed around in this screen a little bit. But I want to talk more about how this block is supposed to work. This module is our functions module, and the goal here is that we can write reusable functions in this block of code, and then they are globally scoped. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, basically what that means is they are accessible from anywhere inside Intelligence Hub. So anywhere you have the opportunity to write an expression in JavaScript, you should be able to use a piece of code out of your functions block if you've defined it. So where might that be? Well, certainly in the transform stage that we've used a little bit so far. We could use our functions. We could use them in our instances. And there's a couple other places that we haven't really gotten too deeply into, but there's plenty of opportunity to reuse code from our functions block at different places in our project. So I want to go ahead and give you a nice example of that. If I hop over here to my pipelines real quick, and you remember when we created pump data, we used a couple of these transform stages, right? And you saw me use math.random a fair bit. So let me go ahead and just give myself random, right? I like to be able to use random numbers because I think it does a great job of giving us something that is easy to generate, right? I don't have to think hard about it. It's just a random number. But it also gives us a different value each time we use it. So if I run this, I get a fail. Math.random. Yeah, that's not going to work for me, is it? Let's try this. Run. Perfect. I get a random number. If I run it again, I get a different number, which means every time I go through this, stuff's changing. It's easy to see. It's easy to observe, right? But numbers are only one piece of information, one type of information we can use in Intelligence Hub and in JavaScript. It'd be great if I could have a random word too. Now, I don't know offhand if such a function exists. If you know one, then save me some effort, leave me a comment. But I'm going to go ahead and make my own. I'm going to go back to the functions block. And when I do this here, I can make a function in one place that then I can reuse in other places. Now, ultimately, we want to use this to make random words, but let's go ahead and just give ourselves a little encouragement, proof of concept. Let's do random number. Can I just do number? That's not reserved. No, great. All right, so here we're going to make this real easy. We're just going to return, we're going to spell it right, return math.random, just like we've been doing, right? Random. Man, I almost did it again. Random, just like we've been doing. Great. Let's save that. Don't forget to save. Let's hop back to that pipeline. Random. And instead of math.random, I'm just going to write number in here. And it's a function, right? So I'm going to give it the parentheses. Now, if you're familiar with JavaScript, you're going to get a little more out of this video. If you're not, feel free to stick around. Maybe you'll get into it. But we are going to be mostly writing JavaScript for this idea. I'm going to go ahead and save. See if I did that right. And hop in here, run. Yep, there we go. So you can see that function I just defined, which just returns a random number, I'm able to continue to query it from my transform expression. All right, so I don't really need this, but what I do want function is a word, right? And I want to be able to define how long I want that word to be. So I'm just going to say of lengths L, or len, excuse me. I'm going to use these short words a lot, and then I try and say them out loud. Doesn't work well for a video, does it? All right, anyways. So let's go ahead and let our phrase be an empty string to begin with. And this is the phrase we're going to build, which is going to be our word, but I'm running out of words for word. All right, and then our characters that we can choose from are going to be, excuse me while I just crawl across my keyboard. There we go. We should have 26 characters. All right. Now I'm going to write a for loop. Let x equals 0. No, 0. No, 0. X is less than and x plus plus. Great. So what this is going to do is it's just going to loop through. It's going to start a new counting variable x at 0, and it's going to loop through as long as x is less than this number, and it's going to add 1 each time. So basically we're going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up until whatever we enter in as our len value. And for that, every time we do that, we're going to say phrase. We're going to add to phrase chars.char. This is a little function char at, which will give me the character at position this out of this string, and this, I'm really layering it together here, will be a random value of the 26. So it's going to be 0 to 25, really, because that math.floor is going to round down. Capital M, math.random. So a random value between 0 and 25 is going to be chosen from this string and added to our empty phrase there. And at the end, we're going to return phrase. Right? So let's see. Save. Now there's a couple ways I can test this. I could hop over here to my pipeline. I could write bonk word, and let's get 5 letters. Save. And then I could click run and really cross my fingers. There we go. And you can see I've got now some random 5-letter word showing up here. Word might be a bit of a stretch, but you know, here we are. All right. So I got something there, but you know, flipping between some pipeline that I'm building and my functions module every time might be a little bit of a pain. So another thing I can do, and we looked at this a little bit when we were talking about JSONs, is I can use the console.log, and I can test out my functions. And when I do this, let's get 8 characters this time, and I hit run, this is going to run this block of code, and over here is the console output. So I can put a couple different things. You know, if I had console, .log word 18, right? Now I can put out a couple different words. So I can use this just to run JavaScript. But really, what I'm doing this all for is to define these functions, and they're able to show up in any of my other modules. And I can layer these too, right? Maybe I like having the idea of like being able to define a variable length word, but let's see. Maybe I want a random word from like 1 to some length. So I could do word, I'll call this word 2, right? And then this is going to say, same deal, it's going to give me up to this length, but it's going to be, let's see, word 2, yeah, sure. We'll use length again, len again. Great. And this time I want to choose a, let's see, let word length equal, let me see, math.random. So we're going to do math.floor. Nope. Perfect. Math.random times, let's see, len. And then to that, we're going to add 1, right? And then we're going to return word 2. Nope, sorry, just word of word length. See if that's going to work. So word 2, 7. 7. Perfect. Hope this worked. Didn't work. Math is not defined. Forgot to uppercase. No problem. We can solve that. And there you go. Now you can see I got a 4 in there. How did that happen? 4. Get out of there. Now we're just generating some random length words. That's pretty neat. Okay. So why is this helpful? All right. Well, we looked at, if I go back to my pipeline, I could drop anywhere that I'm doing a transform operation. If I'm doing some complicated math, I could like grab some value out of my message and then use it here as a parameter. Don't really have a great example of how I can do that given this situation, but, let's do, I can sooner or later run these functions in my transform operations. If I go over here, let's make a new model. Simple model. It's just going to have one attribute. Right? And that's going to be of type, we'll just leave it as type any. Great. And then I make an instance. Oh, right, of course. Need to select my model. I can use these here too. Return word 2. We'll give this one a little more variability opportunity. There we go. And I test my instance. And see, now I can reuse these functions here too. So this is a great way, if you're going to write a piece of code that you're going to reuse a lot. Like for demo purposes, I might reuse this random word a lot, and I want to reuse it in different places. Or maybe I want to provide access for my colleagues to reuse it in various places. There are plenty of times you might want to do this, right? So keeping people from reusing code, sort of reduces or rewriting code reduces the opportunity for human error and lets you know that you're sort of being repeatable with your work. This is a great way to do that. One thing you do have to be aware of, though, your project has a single functions block. This name doesn't really change anything right now. So you have to make sure that if you're going to use this functions block and you're going to define functions, when you import or export other projects, make sure you're not overwriting their functions onto yours, or you're going to lose some functionality, right? So when you go here to project and you import, you're not going to do a full project import, right? And when you choose your file, make sure you're not choosing one that has a functions block, because that will overwrite what you have. So something to be aware of. Your functions block can be fairly easily overwritten. Don't get caught on that. But I hope you guys see some value in this, and I hope you have some interest. You can always use this to make your code more reusable. You can always use it just to goof around in JavaScript if you want to test something out while you're programming. It's really up to you. So hope it's helpful.
So there you go, guys. That's the functions module. It's not too deep, but I think it can be really powerful if you like writing code. If you're not a code guy, don't worry about it. You don't have to use it. There's plenty of other ways you can do your projects in Intelligence Hub, but if you really want to leverage some reusability and reuse some code, rewrite or not rewrite some things, this is a great way to do that. So take it to the next level using your functions, and I hope you build something cool. Take care.